and India did in 2021 in Gabba. Can they do this again at Perth come 22nd November? Keep watching. Um, Welcome everyone. Talks on Ground. Jamie is here with us. Jamie को सब जानते हैं. He's a sports writer and author. He runs two YouTube channels. We'll know everything about the Perth Test starting tomorrow. So welcome, Jamie.
Thank you for having me here, Samit. Look, I can't believe that, it's been 32 years since India and Australia last played a five test series, The last one was
Right.
91, 92. I was too young. I mean, I have memories, but I was very, very young. Most of my memories from that series are reading up on it through Sports Star and magazines, and then, of course, the wonderful world of YouTube. But it just says something that, to my mind, this is the greatest test rivalry going around, with all due respect to the Brits and the Aussies and that little cup called the Ashes. Because India and Australia, they, for the last 10, maybe even 15, 17 years, they don't do dull series. In the 90s, we saw some one sided series, especially when India would go to Australia. But the rise of Indian cricket in the last 2 decades, it is directly proportionate to how this rivalry has become the best going around. India, the only Asian team, not once but twice, to go to Australia and win series. And the Aussies cannot fathom, Summit, that it's been 10 years since they've got their hands on the blooming Border-Gavaskar series. Now, as the discussion goes on, I'm sure you're going to ask me very, very pertinent questions. But I'll just say right now, unlike the past, I'm not so optimistic about India's chances, at least for the first two test matches.
And that's so funny because everybody you hear, whether Kiwis, Aussies, British, Indian, कोई ये नहीं कह रहा है कि no one is saying that India is going to win. In fact, the whole series, everyone has written India off, just like they did when India was bowled out for 36 last series mein, 2021 mein. But this time the Aussies do look better prepared. They don't have the kind of issues they had in 18, 19 or even 2021. Plus, उन्होंने scheduling बढ़ाया. They've been very smart with the scheduling. And India has been very unsmart with their preparation, I must say. Though I do like a couple of things they're doing. What do you think will be the impact of this 3-0 whitewashing that happened at home?
Absolutely. Look, I am what New Zealand did, right? Nobody saw that coming. I did multiple shows where I wrote them off. I said India is going to go to Australia with a 5-0 home record, meaning 2-0 Bangladesh, and then uske baad New Zealand ko hum 3-0 harayenge. But what that series has done is, apart from hammer home the fact, अगर कोई इंसान आज भी नहीं मानता कि हमारी टीम स्पिन को नहीं खेल पाती, gone are the days when India produced the best spin players. 10-12 साल से वो वहम टूट चुका है. But what it's done is it's poked egos. It's
Mhm.
aging players who for now have been, to their credit, Samit, have been able to put aside certain weaknesses. घर पे वो फिर भी share थे. What it's done is it's poked those egos, right? I know Rohit Sharma is not going to be captaining in the Perth Test. No point going there. But Virat Kohli, even someone like Ravi Chandran Ashwin, 500 and what, 30 odd Test wickets. But he gets outbowled by someone like a Mitchell Santner. He gets outbowled by someone like an Ejaz Patel. He gets outbowled by Washington Sundar, who के सीरीज के शुरुआत में किसी की रेकनिंग में भी नहीं था. अचानक बंदे को ले आए. Pune mein he gets what, 11 wickets, and then he ends up, the leading wicket taker. So what this often does is, in a dressing room or a sporting environment, is insecurity थोड़ी बहुत बढ़ जाती है, right? You reference the 2021 series. Anyone who's followed that series, and I'm sure your viewers are very well informed, how did India win that series? Because literally, Samit, हर टेस्ट के बीच बाद और शुरू में they lost key players. By the time that fourth Gabba test started, India were like wondering कि यार हमारा 12वां player कौन होगा अगर हमें चुनना पड़ा, right? This time, yes, I know Rohit's not there and Shubman Gill's got an injury, but the issues are very, very different. Many people are saying, okay, India is struggling to put together an 11, but it's the doubts of what's just happened. 12 साल के बाद Indian team घर पे series हार चुकी है. So I hope, to their credit and for their fortune, they managed to shed off whatever baggage that 3-0 whitewash did. But I'm sure it's going to be weighing down on their mind. And like you also mentioned, the Aussies have prepared much, much better. I think no other cricket board in the world does player management better than the Aussies. Because Mitchell Stark, what I'm hearing and seeing, he's bowling quicker than usual, right? The guy's 34. अब 34 की उम्र में आप और भी तेज डाल रहे हो. That's not a good sign. And then the scheduling. The day the scheduling came out, I said to my wife, I said, boss, अब इन लोग के अकल ठिकाने आ गए. Normally Indian teams you get Melbourne second, Sydney third. अरे पाटा विकेट तो नहीं कहूंगा पर हाँ there's a certain ease. By the time that fourth test at the MCG starts, India could be 3-0 down because they're starting with Perth. Then they're throwing you in the Lions, then Adelaide Oval, pink ball, memories of 36 all out. And then they're sending you to Brisbane where चलो एक ही टीम है जो 32 साल के बाद वहां कुछ किया है. Does lightning strike twice? No one really knows. So this time around, like we discussed, I just think the Aussies are better prepared and they're going to come harder at India than the last two tours.
So I think just to अगर हमें इसका prediction करना है what will happen, we need to know what worked for India in 2021 and 18-19. So what do you think India did right despite all those issues, injuries, whatever, that they got over Australia back to back twice?
So let's start with 18-19. I mean, I know people are divided on this, लेकिन डेविड वार्नर और स्टीव स्मिथ नहीं थे उस टाइम. वो बैन सर्व कर रहे थे. बिग फैक्टर. बट 18 में the bowling was just coming together after धोनी retired and कोहली took over. काफी साल तक पेस bowling में काफी दिख रहे थे. But 18-19 you saw the arrival of Bumrah. Ishan Sharma 2.0 after that stint in county cricket, he was finding himself. Umesh Yadav was a much better bowler. India had Mohammad Shami. So India had a very, very good bowling attack. And that series was very, very close. Perth Test, Australia won that test match. Virat Kohli got that super 123, which हाल ही में उन्होंने कहा था कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया के अंदर वो मेरा सबसे बेस्ट इनिंग्स है. But it was a very, very close series. I think people don't remember that. The Sydney match was washed out. हो सके वहां पे अगर बारिश ना पड़े, a couple catches were held, it could have been a 2-2 series. But the 2021 series, that to my mind, I mean, I know I'm nostalgic and I'm an 80s born kid, तो वो जो इंडिया ने 2001 में किया था, that up until that 21 series, that
Right.
was the big thing. What they did there was they just came together. Virat Kohli leaves after 36 all out. This is the great Virat Kohli who until that time was, I think, averaging 95 in test cricket for the last 4 years. Virat Kohli goes back. Rohit आएंगे नहीं आएंगे किसी को नहीं पता. Ishan Sharma's fitness, Bumrah's fitness, they don't know. But what Ravi Shastri, and I have to give credit to Ravi Shastri because he gets a lot of flack. What he and Rahane did was they just told that team, boss, COVID hai, koi baat nahi, let's just come together. And I look at someone like a Mohammad Siraj who made his debut in the second test just coming off 36 all out. He does well, he keeps it together. And by the third test, that same Mohammad Siraj, जो कि दो टेस्ट मैच खेल चुके थे, he was somehow the leader of the pack. क्योंकि जडेजा इंजर्ड हो चुके थे, अश्विन इंजर्ड हो चुके थे, there was no Bumrah. Shardul Thakur, T. Natarajan on debut, and then Mohammad Siraj bowling with another debutant, Washington Sundar. What that team did at the Gabba is just unbelievable. Now, Australia, let's not forget, by the time they played that fourth test match at the Gabba, उनके तीन पेस बॉलर्स लगातार तीन मैच खेल चुके थे. So as good as tough as the Aussies are, by that fourth match, they were spent. Okay, and I'm not taking away from what India achieved, but India having four different bowling attacks across four different test matches, it just worked out so well for them. Fresh thoughts, fresh legs, unknown commodities. Australia didn't know how to handle Shardul Thakur. They'd never seen Washington Sundar. So I think in adversity and in that abject situation, जहाँ पे हर match में, I mean, Shami went after one match, Umesh Yadav went after one match. They had no bowlers left. But somehow they used that to the advantage, and against a very determined but rather tired pace bowling attack, things clicked. इस बार 5 टेस्ट मैच है. I don't see Australia playing Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark in every single test match because they're 3 years older now. They're all in their mid 30s. So the rotation will definitely be a factor. You haven't asked me for a prediction, but I've been asked hazard times. I'm going to say it now. I'm not writing India off. I think we're going to see an epic draw in there, and I actually think 2-2 is not beyond the realm of belief.
आपने you have very interestingly focused on the bowling, which I noticed. आपने batting का बिल्कुल you have not mentioned it at all, and I really like that because I think the last two series, even though Pujara was like the anchor and he tired the bowling out, लेकिन इस बारी मतलब everyone is focused on Rohit not being there or Gill having an injury. It's really about the fast bowling, and I have a sense that Bumrah isn't the Bumrah that he was 6 months back. Against New Zealand, he looked very flat. मैं थोड़ा कॉन्ट्रेरियन बोल रहा हूँ, लेकिन मेरे को उसका इंसाइसिवनेस नहीं दिखा. Siraj was completely out of sorts. लेकिन उसी विकेट पे even a guy like Saudi was getting much more bounce. He was swinging the ball even later in the day. But Indian fast bowling was very flat. Do you think that's going to change with fresh legs, maybe a different setup?
I do think so. And why I've not talked about the batting is because the batting has been so problematic for so many years. You rightly mentioned Pujara. Pujara was a huge factor, especially in 18, 19, and then at the Gabba. I talked about how the pace bowlers were tired, but Pat Cummins still bounced the hell out of out of Pujara. But batting is just for me, it's such a problem that I don't even want to go into it. I still feel that despite you may see two debutants at at the Perth Test match. But India's bowling has come along so far, and I'm so glad to say. Also, Australia's batting, it's not the greatest batting. I mean, in Jan, I think in the month of Jan, 10 months ago, West Indies won a test match there, right? So there are very obvious cracks. I still feel कि जो भी bowling हम लोग उतारेंगे per test match में, वो हर टेस्ट मैच में 5 टेस्ट मैच में वो bowling attack 20 विकेट ले पाएगी. मुझे डाउट है कि क्या हमारे बैट्समैन 250 पहुंच पाएंगे. The minimum you need to score is 300. Will they be able to chase 170? I just don't think so. So I have immense faith in the bowling. And you're absolutely right. Whether it's fatigue, whether it's too much cricket, I don't know. Bumrah was not the Bumrah that that we're accustomed to. But they weren't the most boring that Bangalore Test match. They weren't the most conducive wickets, and I think that got to him. And Bumrah home and Bumrah away has been two different bowlers. So I think touch wood, if the guy can stay fit, he's going to be the biggest thing. Mohammad Siraj, I'm very, very disappointed in. I think the last 18 months, home and away, he's become very erratic. ओवर के अगर आप 3 गेंद स्टंप्स पे डालोगे या पैर पे डालोगे तो ऑस्ट्रेलियंस आर गोइंग टू पनिश यू. आई लाइक आकाशदीप. 5 टेस्ट मैच में आकाशदीप ने बेसिक अप्रोच से, बेसिक रनअप से, एंड विद दैट वेरी decent speed. He's been remarkable. आप सोचिए कि अगर वो कहाँ where did he play? He played in Dharamshala, he played in Wankhede, he played in Pune and Bangalore. If he's getting the ball to pitch on a crack and coming to the left-handers like Conway and Tom Latham, the guy could be a handful in Perth and definitely a handful at the Gabba. Then you have someone like प्रसिद्ध कृष्णा जो आजकल के सोशल मीडिया वाले उसको बहुत बहुत बुरा नाम देते हैं. He had two very, very bad test matches, his only test matches. But he's been sitting in Australia for almost a month now, Samit. He's played 2 weeks of competitive cricket, though India A match खेले उसने. And I think right now recency bias has to be a factor. If you're bowling 60 overs and taking 10 wickets in Australian conditions, I think he should start. But most probably there, I'm hearing that they might go for Harshit Rana. But again, my point is I have immense faith because since 1819, the bowlers have done fantastically. And for a nation that's always love their batsmen more than their bowlers, I'm very glad to say कि भाई मुझे इस bowling attack में पूरा विश्वास है. जो भी आप 5 bowler चुनोगे, maybe Nitish Reddy gets a debut. I have full faith. The batting, I am very, very skeptical about, sad to say.
बस एक बिफोर वी गो फॉरवर्ड मैं आपको एक इंटरेस्टिंग बात बताता हूँ. जस्ट बिफोर दिस आई वाज वाचिंग ऑन यूट्यूब एन इंटरव्यू ऑफ रॉबर्ट क्रेडॉक, द फेमस जर्नलिस्ट. तो उनसे पूछा गया कि व्हाट डू यू थिंक विल हैपन, and he said something very interesting. He said the reason Australia has taken this Max Sweeney to open with Usman Khwaja is because they think India की bowling में सिर्फ एक बुमराह है, and they don't want to go hard early. They want to just block him. They are okay getting 20 of 10 overs. लेकिन पहला spell अगर आपने बुमराह का निकाल दिया, so then they think they can climb onto the Indian bowling. and which I thought was also evident in the way they've scheduled it. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Usman Khwaja has been talking about Jasprit Bumrah and how he's the hardest bowler to face. But once you get past his action, it becomes somewhat easier. Hats off to all these guys who think they can face Bumrah, because that is what Bumrah does. Bumrah, like I said, Bumrah is one, and then the other second, third pace bowlers are very, very far ahead. It's a simplistic way for Robert Craddock to say that हाँ उनको लगता है कि हम उनको खेल पाएंगे. But again, I just think if Akash Deeps comes on first change, like we saw him do, and he hits the cracks, he can be a handful. McSweeney, I think, is the only really only doubt that people had. Would it be McSweeney? Would it be Bancroft? Would it be somebody? Oh, Marcus Harris.
Marcus Harris.
Correct. So the fact that he's been picked, and I believe he's the only player under 30 in this team. With all due respect to him, I don't think he's going to be a factor because there's Travis Head. I just think Travis Head, Marnus Labuschagne, and Alex Carey. I think these guys in the middle order, they're the ones that India are going to knock over. Usman Khwaja has been fantastic, but आजकल उनका बल्ला नहीं बोल रहा है. I think be it Bumrah, whichever first two pace bowlers India go with, let's talk about Perth. It's too early to talk about Adelaide and Brisbane right now.
Adelaide.
It's the Perth Test. I think India will get the first two wickets very, very easily. They might even get a third on a good day. But do they have what it takes, to get head? Or someone like Mitchell Marsh also, the guy is a
Hmm.
beast when he gets going. So
Yeah.
I'm not
Very
too worried
scary
about
guy.
very scary क्योंकि वो ऐसा है कि वो 60 पे 60 मार देगा आपको नहीं पता क्या हुआ. And then someone like an Alex Carey. So I have full faith that India will consistently have Australia two down in the first hour. But उसके बाद क्या होगा? What spinner are you going to play? Are you going to go for four fast bowlers? If your fourth one is Nitish Reddy, I watched him in that, they were streaming that practice match. यार वो 125 डालता है वो, so yes, it's a good package, but he doesn't look test ready right now. So and then you take the risk of dropping a Jadeja who's, मानता हूं bowling कुछ खास नहीं है सेना countries में, but he's your most dependable middle order batsman after Pant. So India's main challenge is not just dealing with a revitalized Australia or the Perth bounce and cracks. It's like we saw in the WTC final of 21 and 23. It's in picking the best 11. And I hope they don't blunder in that decision come the toss.
What do you think will be the best 11? Agar aap, if you are Gambhir, so what are you? Who are you picking?
That's a tricky one. Gambhir thinks a certain way. I can predict the way that Gambhir would think. Um, Look, I know that spinners have not had a massive role in Australia, but someone like a Nathan Lyon has given you evidence कि जो चार टेस्ट मैच हो चुके हैं इस पर्थ नए पर्थ स्टेडियम में, the guy is the leading wicket taker in the last 4 years. So spin has a role, and I just hope that India doesn't go for the conservative नहीं एक ही spinner खिलाएंगे, because you need an Ashwin, I believe, but you also need someone like a Jadeja, and you also need a Washington Sundar. I mean, Washington Sundar, like I mentioned earlier on the podcast, he comes in and he outbowls
Hmm.
Ashwin. How is that possible? What is Ashwin doing wrong, and what is Sundar, who's what 24, three test matches? What has he done differently? कुछ नहीं किया उसने. He used his height. He used, he put revs on the ball. Ashwin has height. Ashwin's been putting revs on the ball for 10 years. How was Ashwin so flat against New Zealand, and how was Sundar so good? I think it's because something new came in, a new thought process came in, a younger player came in. So होगा नहीं ऐसा. I would actually drop Ashwin for Perth, and I would play Bumrah, Akash Deep, Prasidh Krishna, Ravindra Jadeja, and Washington Sundar. But Gambhir ऐसा नहीं सोचेंगे. He'll probably go for four quicks and one spinner, and I think it might backfire.
Right. And I completely agree with your Ashwin point. क्योंकि न्यूजीलैंड सीरीज में slightly controversial view maybe, but I felt that there was some issue going into that series with respect to the vice captaincy. Bumrah was announced as the vice captain. There were reports of a rift between Rohit and Gambhir over selection matters and so on. So maybe the dressing room was not as happy as it has been. And maybe that was what was lacking because field पे team बहुत ही flat दिख रही थी. And I'm sure Rohit could have done better with the field placements and all that. Uh, but I think ये सुंदर वाला जो है मेरा एक thought था. Why isn't he considered for opening? After all, you know that Rahul ka bhi kya average 30 hai. On a good day, he might get you 100 in 10 test matches or something. But if you go with Sundar, you get an additional spinner as in a bowler, and you also he's a good bat and he's a left-hander. तो एक ये thought हो सकता था, maybe a Ganguly like character would have done it.
It's interesting. I've in fact somebody else on another show. I forgot my kahan tha, they also suggested this, but in the white ball format. See again, I mean, a guy like Washington Sundar, you look at his batting, you look at his stats across formats. There's nothing to suggest that he cannot do the job. But I don't know how left field this team will want to think. I agree there's merit, but again, the good faith that KL Rahul has, the kind of comments that Gautam Gambhir has had, despite the fact that he averages 20 in Australia after three tours.
Right.
So again, if it's just one test match for a makeshift thing, I could sleep peacefully with maybe KL Rahul batting at number three, and then potentially trying Washington Sundar. But again, the odds are stacked against them. It's a five test match series. The doubts, the egos being crushed, like I mentioned, Perth being the starter. I just don't think they're brave enough to take the call of sending someone like Washington Sundar. And I'm saying you don't even look at Washington. You could send a Dhruv Jurel also. If
Mm.
Shubman Gill hadn't got that injury, he could have opened. But right now, no Rohit, your most dependable opener, your most dependable number three, not being there. The fact that Gautam Gambhir says that how many teams can I'm going to paraphrase here. ऐसा कुछ कहा था कि how many teams have the luxury of someone like a KL Rahul जो कि opening कर सकते हैं, जो कि तीन पे कर सकते हैं, जो कि छह पे खेल सकते हैं. अच्छा statement है, but the fact is, what has he done across 53 test matches as opener, as number three or number six for you to make these statements? So I just think they'll go for the conservative approach and they'll open with KL Rahul.
Where would you put this Jurel? Would you tinker with him at three, or do you think वो जो सुनने में आ रहा है छह पे खिलाएंगे?
Most logically, you want him to bat at number six, but look, the guy's opened in first class cricket. He's got a 250, as an opener. So I
I
would,
didn't know that.
yeah, he's in fact he came into the line. He got some 249 for UP. I know it was against one of those northeast states, but जब आप 250 मारते हो in one of your early matches, you do get noticed. So again, because we're not looking at four test matches, एक test match की बात है, आप थोड़ा tinkering कर सकते हो. I would be totally fine if Jurel were to open, bat at number three or bat number six. But now that I know they're going to go with KL Rahul, now that I know they're going to bat Padikkal at number three, the only logical space left for Dhruv Jurel is number six.
Hmm. And then at seven you have Jadeja, or
Whichever all
what I'm
rounder. It
understand.
could be it could be Nitish Reddy most likely, and then number eight becomes your Jadeja slash Ashwin slash Sundar, and then your three fast bowlers. Because my gut says they're going to go, especially the way Morne Morkel, the bowling coach, was talking um, about Reddy, unless it was some thing to throw off the Aussies, and while giving him Reddy the confidence, it looks like they'll go for Reddy. If Reddy plays, then he's your number seven, and then you have three fast bowlers, and then that one spin bowling all rounder. अब वो कौन है वो टॉस पे ही मालूम पड़ेगा.
I haven't seen Reddy because I don't follow IPL much at all. So I saw his bowling online, and I thought he's a pitch-up bowler who swings it in the air, not much pace. So I wonder why they are playing him up that much. Have you seen him bat? Is he can he contribute at seven?
He's like that batsman who bowls, right? Domestic में अच्छा
Uh,
record है. Forget the IPL. The IPL is just one factor. He's a much better batsman. But again, I just don't feel he's ready to start a five test match series at a ground like Optus Stadium in Perth. अगर
mm,
ये मेलबर्न में खेलते, सिडनी में खेलते, fine. But again, somehow over the 150 odd years of this great sport, that pace bowling all rounder has always found immense value, because what he does is he takes the burden of भले ही वो एक दिन में केवल 8-10 ओवर डाले, it does somehow in the bigger picture it reduces the workload. But I just think they're sort of looking at him for that Shardul Thakur role. Shardul Thakur had a huge impact in the Gabba Test 3 years ago. You got a 50, got 3-4 wickets. I think they're putting all their eggs in one basket कि ये बंदा हाँ शायद under prepared है, Decent batsman, not great pace, but if he can just hold things together like Shardul did, we might get a win out of that. So, but I think that's putting a lot of pressure on a guy who's 21 years old right now.
Isn't Harshit Rana the same except that he bowls quicker and he's less of a bat?
Exactly. Harshit Rana is a proper bowler. Who, again, कहते हैं batting कर सकते हैं, but he's not an all-rounder. I don't view him as an all-rounder. He's like Java Galshina. अच्छी bowling करेंगे और यहाँ पे एक आध batting करेंगे. But you again, are you playing him in Perth? Are you giving him a debut because he can bat a bit? I think that's the wrong way to go. Pick your best
Hmm.
bowlers for the skill they do, right? Don't think of Harshit Rana as a guy who can contribute runs. Think of him as a quick guy who can hit the cracks and make life tough for the Aussies. The same way, think of Nitish Rana as a batsman who can give you 8-10. To expect him to come and now, pitch the ball up and swing the ball in Perth. जितना भी मैंने देखा उसको in that practice match, his bowling was very, very average. He has a holding role. He's not going to run through and take wickets.
तो आपके हिसाब से if you were designing the strategy कि इंडिया ने at the end of the 5 days India has won the match, what do you think needs to happen for India to do that?
I don't think the match is going to go into the fourth day, unfortunately. Toss. You have to win the toss and bat. इस गलत फहमी में मत रहना कि चलो थोड़ा गीला है, green है, we're going to bowl. No, you do not want to be chasing. I think the New Zealand series has showed that you do not want to be chasing. You definitely don't want to be chasing at Perth, especially when there's no Rohit, when there's no Shubman Gill. Dhruv Jurel is playing a test match after 7 months. Devdutt Padikkal is playing a test match after 7 months. Harshadana will probably be on debut. KL Rahul doesn't have any runs to speak for. Just bat first, occupy the crease. It was something that Pujara did fantastically. I hope they find someone who can be 50% of what Pujara did. Just try and keep the Aussies on the field for 5 sessions. It's a tough ask because I don't think India with this batting can do it. But again, 2021 proved a lot of us wrong. And just take it day by day. On day one, don't think about day two. On day two, don't think about day three. Hope you bat and try and bat until lunch on day two. And I think if that's achieved, the Aussies will be very very frustrated.
Would you prefer कि इंडिया थोड़ा जल्दी खेल ले because you don't have a Pujara and 70 overs में 300 कर दे? I mean, with one guy coming off or something. What do you think is better for India?
Again, you have natural stroke players like Jaiswal who are not going to play slowly. Then you have someone like Pant. Pant is he's a maverick, right? You need KL Rahul trying to occupy the crease. I think Virat Kohli will occupy the crease. I think Dhruv Jurel will occupy the crease. Um, but again, the roles have to be defined. I mean, we've seen Jaiswal outstanding numbers, but he struggled against pace. He struggled against a Tim Saudi. You mentioned Tim Saudi. He struggled of late, and now he's got the world at his feet. He's a fantastic player. ये 12-15 साल का player है. But I think there are certain chinks in his armory which the Aussies are probably going to expose. Um, he's probably going to want to bide out time and wait for the spinner because that's what his template has been कि पेसर्स को थोड़ा खेलो जैसे ही स्पिनर आया इस पे चढ़ जाओ पर यार ये सामने नेथन लायन है 525 विकेट वो कोई छोटा मोटा बॉलर नहीं है पुराना चावल है वो so I think a lot of the tone will be set on how Jaiswal bats and how then number 3 and 4 bat क्योंकि Rishabh Pant is not going to hold back. Dhruv Jurel might settle down for a while, but he's also a natural stroke player. And if we're looking at Nitish Reddy at number 7, he also likes to play his shots. Again, people are going to call me anti-Rahul. I'm not a Rahul hater, but I just given up on KL Rahul. तो केएल राहुल चाहे 10 गेंदें खेलें या 100 गेंदें खेलें मुझे frankly कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. I think how Jaiswal plays, how Padikkal plays, and then how Virat Kohli plays. If these three batsmen can bat out time, take 70, 80 balls to get 20 runs, then it's going to make life much easier for the middle overs to come. And as I said, bat 5 sessions and you put yourself in a very, very good position. We cannot afford any 175, any 210, any 225 all outs. 5 sessions, you're going to get 325, and that's going to put Australia under pressure. Because, like I said earlier, India have the bowling to take 20 wickets.
So before we wrap up, what about Australia? Won't they feeling the pressure? After all, यही हुआ था Gabba में, in my view. That the other side being so depleted definitely takes away some of your fire, if I may. And uski wajah se they had bowled a lot. Now again, very eerily similar things are happening. Last series में आपके रोहित नहीं गए थे. He went late and he joined in the third test, if I remember. Quarantine थे. उसके बाद विराट वापस आ गए थे. Similar thing is happening in the reverse. As in Rohit is joining late for a baby. And again, India has injuries. So will Australia be just a little tampered down given these set of circumstances? And what do you think is their mindset?
Look, I think having followed the way they've rotated players, they've given guys a break. So I think they have these three fast bowlers are very fresh. Nathan Lyon is very fresh. I think the fact that they finally cracked the scheduling, like put India under pressure by starting at Perth, I think Australia are again they're not going to underestimate Australia क्योंकि 10 साल हो गए कि ऑस्ट्रेलियन टीम ने बॉर्डर गावस्कर ट्रॉफी जीता है. But I think they're going to be much more confident because India have problems. Virat Kohli is averaging 30 for the last 4 years. There's no Rohit, so there's enough factors like we've discussed. I don't think they're going to be under any pressure at all. Had this been a different venue, maybe, but they know Perth Stadium. They're unbeaten there. They won all four Test matches. To my mind, it's definitely India that's under pressure. Australia have zero selection issues, zero fitness issues. They're coming off a break. I just think, unlike the last two times, they're much more, well, they're better placed going into the first test of a series.
Okay. So final word, आपका what do you think are the two players from each side who can really swing the game? और final prediction क्या है आपका?
Two players, Jasprit Bumrah and Rishabh Pant, without a doubt, because they've done that for the last 5 years. Or Australia, say, uh, Alex Carey, Travis Head. These guys are in the middle order. Like I said, if Australia can get a start, ये दोनों आके वो 60-65 बॉल पे 70-80 मार देंगे, and then India's whatever strength is left in India, that might just evaporate. In regards, you want a prediction for the Perth Test match or the whole series?
Both.
पर्थ तो आई थिंक इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया 3 दिन में मैच लेके जाएगी या मैक्सिमम 3.5 days. Only because I've said this prediction now for the last 6 months, I don't want to change it. I'm still saying 2-2. 2-2.
Okay.
2-2. I don't want to change it. I have
Brilliant.
at times felt like, nahi yaar, is about 3-2 bol do, but I just because I said this 6 months ago, I don't want to change my stance. Many people are saying, yaar, draw kahan se aayega? But I just think we might see a draw. And I think Australia are not that good to beat India 4-0. And India are not that bad to also, to do that. It might be 3-2, but I'm going to stick my neck and say 2-2. Which right now, a day before the first test match, many Indians say, "Ha, bhai, 2-2 is something we'll happily take." It doesn't put you in the WTC final, but India have only themselves to blame for that. There is no way India is going to the WTC final. I think we should leave that baggage now and just view this fantastic series with an extra test match for good measure. Just view it with very low expectation. I think we'll all have a nice, healthier 6 weeks if
Right.
we do that.
Right. So आप सोच रहे हो कि मेलबर्न एंड गैबा इंडिया जीतेगा, सिडनी में वॉश आउट या ड्रॉ एंड
सिडनी
फर्स्ट टू में
prediction
डाउन जाएगा?
हाँ सिडनी में क्या होता है बारिश अक्सर होती है बट I think Melbourne, and somehow, despite 36 all out, I'm not too worried about Adelaide. I think India की bowling इस बार also last time अगर रहाणे विराट कोहली को रन आउट नहीं कर दे वो टेस्ट मैच कुछ कुछ और होता. I think India will lose Perth. I think India will lose Gabba, and I think they'll win Adelaide. उसके आगे lottery. I don't know what will happen beyond that. But I'm saying right now on your show, India, it's a big call to make. I'll probably have egg on my
राइट.
face. हो चुका है मेरे साथ पहले भी. I'm saying India will go to Brisbane 1-all.
Oh wow. And interestingly, if I remember, Adelaide जो डे नाइटर था उसमें फर्स्ट इनिंग्स इंडिया डिड वेल. आई थिंक यू रेफरिंग टू दैट 68 और समथिंग विराट मेड,
70 odd, yeah.
राइट?
Yeah.
हाँ, जब लेकिन वो कहते हैं कि वो विकेट उस टाइम पे उतना क्विक नहीं था एंड इट काइंड ऑफ क्विक एंड अप लेटर ऑन, बट एनीवेज फॉर अनदर डे. So 2-2 it is, and I'm feeling like I should back your prediction. So we'll see in 2025, I think 6 January, whatever, 7 January, कि ये सही होता है या नहीं. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us. बहुत मजा आया. Hopefully, I asked the right questions, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Thank you, absolutely, and let's do a New Year's show to recap and see how good our predictions were.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amy. All right.